We've been jumping around because the Kings and the Chronicles cover the same history. And whenever we're discussing the kings of Judah, we go to the Chronicles of the kings of Judah. That is what we have in the Bible, the Chronicles. And when we're covering the Northern Kingdom kings, the kings of Israel or Samaria, in other words, we jump into the kings because it sort of briefly covers all of them, whether it be Southern Kingdom or Northern Kingdom. So this week, however, we're going to pick up with 1 Kings 17, speaking on Elijah and Ahab and their relationship. And spoiler, Elijah outlives Ahab. So we'll go to we'll try to get to the ascension of Elijah. All right, but I'm gonna start here in 1 Kings 17 and verse 1. And Elijah the Tishbite, who was of the inhabitants of Gilead, said unto Ahab. All right, so where is Tishbe or Thisbe or Thisbe? Let's take a look on the map here. It's the same city that Tobit in the Apocrypha came from. Let's see if we can find it on here. It's not on this map, but of course we have a couple different maps. It's generally right here south of the Sea of Galilee, right there on the Jordan. Let's see if we can find on another map real quick. Let's see. Let's go to downloads. I think this is the one that has all the different cities on it. No, it's not. That shows the border between Northern and Southern Kingdom. This might show Thisbe on it. Surprisingly, this one does not either. Must have been some other map that I saw Thisbe on. Or Tishbe, as it says right here, the Tishbite. But yeah, generally it's right here south of the Sea of Chinnereth, also known as the Sea of Galilee. Tishbe down here. Excuse me, it's down here. I've seen it in other areas though, so maybe this map isn't the most accurate. But regardless, for what we're talking about now, with Elijah being from Tishbe, being of the inhabitants of Gilead, as we see right here, it says Gilead right here. It says Gilead, then it says Tishbe. With him being a Tishbite, he's from Tishbe. All right. More than likely, a Gadite was Elijah, the prophet. And that is actually what it says in the when he's reckoning the genealogies of the original KJV. He is reckoned as a Gadite. But anyway, verse 1, And Elijah the Tishbite, who is of the inhabitants of Gilead, said unto Ahab, As the Lord God of Israel liveth, before whom I stand, there shall not be dew nor rain these years, but according to my word. Right? He shut up the windows of heaven. He stopped the rain. He caused a drought. And in those days, he caused a drought. He caused a famine. And the word of the Lord came unto him, saying, Get thee hence, and turn thee eastward, and hide thyself by the brook Cherith, that is before Jordan. All right. So let's see if we can see that on the map. Excuse me. Let's see. Like I said, the brook Cherith. It's probably one of these since it said get eastward. Probably east of the Jordan. Let's pull it up again. See if it, since it had the other landmarkers, see if it has the brook Cherith. Yes, right here. Right there next to Tishbe. All right. The brook Cherith, that is before Jordan. And it shall be that thou shalt drink of the brook, and I have commanded the ravens to feed thee there. So he went and did according to the word of the Lord, for he went and dwelt by the brook Cherith, that is before Jordan. And just briefly on like ravens and all like corvids like that, those blackbirds, whether it be magpies, ravens, crows, things like that, they're very smart. You can train them to do whatever. And God had them specifically, or told them specifically to feed Elijah there. And the ravens brought, verse 6, and the ravens brought him bread and flesh in the morning, and bread and flesh in the evening, and he drank of the brook. And it came to pass after a while that the brook dried up, because there had been no rain in the land. So even the brook that he was drinking of, that Elijah was drinking out of, even it dried up. And the word of the Lord came unto him, saying, Arise, get thee to Zarephath, which belongeth to Zidon, and dwell there. I wonder if this map's going to have Zarephath on it. We know it's north, all the way up here in Zidon. Yeah, Zarephath, right there on the ocean, right there on the Mediterranean, south of the city of Zidon, north of Tyre. All right. Let's see. Zarephath, which belongs to Zidon, dwelt there. Behold, I have commanded a widow woman there to sustain thee. So he arose and went to Zarephath. And when he came to the gate of the city, behold, the widow woman was there gathering of sticks. And he called to her and said, Fetch me, I pray thee, a little water in a vessel, that I may drink. And as she was going to fetch it, he called to her and said, Bring me, I pray thee, a morsel of bread in thine hand. Let me make sure that there are no technical difficulties, because that has been an issue in the past. So let's just make sure everything sounds all right. Wow, that's behind. The widow woman was there gathering of... Okay, there we go. Praise the Lord. Everything's going fine. And as she was, verse 11, picking up with verse 11. And as she was going to fetch it, he called to her and said, Bring me, I pray thee, a morsel of bread in thy hand. And she said, As the Lord thy God liveth, I have not a cake, but a handful of meal in a barrel, and a little oil in a cruse. And behold, I am gathering 2 sticks, and I may go in and dress it for me and my son, that we may eat it and die. Because obviously that's in Zidon is just north of Israel, so they're in that drought too. They're in that famine too. And Elijah said unto her, Fear not, go and do as thou hast said, but make me thereof a little cake first, and bring it unto me, and after make for thee and for thy son. For thus saith the Lord God of Israel, The barrel of meal shall not waste, neither shall the cruse of oil fail, until the day that the Lord sendeth rain upon the earth. And she went and did according to the saying of Elijah, and she and he and her house did eat many days. Right, so you have a similar miracle here as when Christ took the loaves and the fishes and fed thousands. Right, it's a similar miracle where the food does not run out. Your goods do not run out. If you're serving the Lord will provide for you. All right, many days. Verse 16. And the barrel of meal wasted not, neither did the cruse of oil fail, according to the word of the Lord which he spake by Elijah. Verse 17. And it came to pass after these things that the son of the woman, the mistress of the house, fell sick, and his sickness was so sore that there was no breath left in him. Right, he died. And she said unto Elijah, What have I to do with thee, O thou man of God? Art thou come unto me to call my sin to remembrance and to slay my son? She said, Look, I brought you into my house, and now my son is dead. Verse 19. And he said unto her, Give me thy son. And he took him out of her bosom and carried him up into a loft, where he abode and laid him upon his own bed. And he cried unto the Lord and said, O Lord my God, hast thou also brought evil upon the widow with whom I sojourn by slaying her son? And he stretched himself upon the child 3 times and cried unto the Lord and said, O Lord my God, I pray thee, let this child's soul come into him again. And the Lord heard the voice of Elijah, and the soul of the child came into him again, and he revived again. A similar miracle to when Christ raised Lazarus is what we see here from Elijah, raising this young child from the dead. And actually, Christ did this a few times. He did it with a sick little girl at one point as well. So the difference is Christ was fully endowed with the Spirit. He didn't have to cover 3 times and cry to the Lord. He could just raise the child up. But, Elijah, again, he has the Spirit of the Lord upon him. He can do these miracles. And he revived. Verse 22. And the Lord heard the voice of Elijah, and the soul of the child came into him again, and he revived. Verse 23. And Elijah took the child and brought him down out of the chamber into the house and delivered him unto his mother. And Elijah said, See, thy son liveth. And the woman said to Elijah, Now by this I know that thou art a man of God, and that the word of the Lord in thy mouth is truth. All right, so this is a Canaanite woman that he did this for, because he's staying with her. His people would deliver him to Ahab, the wicked king, and have him killed. But he actually revived this Canaanite woman's son. Chapter 18, starting with verse 1. And it came to pass after many days that the word of the Lord came to Elijah in the 3rd year, saying, Go, show thyself to Ahab, and I will send rain upon the earth. And Elijah went to show himself unto Ahab, and there was a sore famine in Samaria, right? So the famine's still going on. And Ahab called Obadiah, which was the governor of his house. Now Obadiah feared the Lord greatly. For it was so when Jezebel cut off the prophets of the Lord that Obadiah took 100 prophets and hid them by 50 in a cave and fed them with bread and water. Right? So Obadiah is secretly serving the Lord, whereas Ahab and Jezebel and all the rest of the majority of the northern kingdom of Israel are serving Baal at this time. And those who aren't serving Baal are worshiping the golden calves of Jeroboam. Right? They're doing all sorts of pagan rituals. Verse 5. And Ahab said unto Obadiah, Go into the land, unto all fountains of water, and unto all brooks, peradventure we may find grass to save the horses and mules alive, that we lose not all the beasts. So they divided the land between them to pass throughout it. Ahab went one way by himself, and Obadiah went another way by himself. Verse 7. And as Obadiah was in the way, behold, Elijah met him, and he knew him, and fell on his face, and said, Art thou that my Lord Elijah? Right, so everybody's got to be talking at this point about, the prophet who brought the famine upon the land, the prophet who brought the drought upon the land, who shut up the windows of heaven, right? And he answered and he answered him, I am. Go tell thy Lord, behold, Elijah is here. And he said, What have I sinned, that thou wouldest deliver thy servant into the hand of Ahab to slay me? As the Lord thy God liveth, there is no nation or kingdom whither my Lord hath not sent to seek thee. And when they said he is not there, he took an oath of the kingdom and nation that they found thee not. And now thou sayest, Go tell thy Lord, behold, Elijah is here. And it shall come to pass, as soon as I am gone from thee, that the Spirit of the Lord shall carry thee whither I know not. And so when I come and tell Ahab, and he cannot find thee, he shall slay me. But I, thy servant, fear the Lord from my youth. Right? So Obadiah is like, look, if I go and tell Ahab that I found you and we get back and you're not here, then he's going to kill me. Verse 13. Was it not told my Lord what I did when Jezebel slew the prophets of the Lord? How I hid 100 men of the Lord's prophets by 50 in a cave and fed them with bread and water? And now thou sayest, Go tell thy Lord, behold, Elijah is here, and he shall slay me. And Elijah said, As the Lord of hosts liveth, before whom I stand, I will surely show myself unto him today. All right, so Elijah's like, look, I came to meet Ahab. I ain't going to run off. I ain't hiding from him no more. Verse 16. So Obadiah went to meet Ahab and told him, and Ahab went to meet Elijah. And it came to pass when Ahab saw Elijah, that Ahab said unto him, Art thou he that troubleth Israel? And he answered, I have not troubled Israel, but thou and thy father's house, and that ye have forsaken the commandments of the Lord, and thou hast followed Baalim, right? So other lords. Baalim, the same way that in the English, the S on the end of a word means plural. In Hebrew, the M on the end of a word means plural. So when it says Baal means Lord. Baalim means lords, plenty. Instead of serving the one Lord, the Most High, they serve Baal and many lords. Verse 19. Now therefore send and gather to me all Israel unto Mount Carmel, and the prophets of Baal 450, and the prophets of the groves 400, which eat at Jezebel's table. Look, so he said, look, bring everybody, bring all your men, bring all that you got up to Mount Carmel. And Mount Carmel's going to be up here. Yeah, Mount Carmel's up here. Right there on the coast of the Mediterranean. Okay, verse 20. So Ahab sent unto all the children of Israel, and gathered the prophets together unto Mount Carmel. And Elijah came unto all the people, and said, How long halt ye between two opinions? If the Lord be God, follow him. But if Baal, then follow him. And the people answered him not a word. Right? Because, again, the people of that time, they served many lords, right? So they would serve, quote unquote, they would serve God, right? The God of Israel, but then also worship Baal, and then also worship the golden calves that Jeroboam set up. So the people were had that pagan mindset of we can serve how many ever gods that we want to. But obviously that's not biblical. That's not scripture. God wants you to only serve him and have no other gods before him. Verse 22. Then said Elijah unto the people, even I only, remain a prophet of the Lord, but Baal's prophets are 450 men. Let them therefore give us 2 bullocks, and let them choose 1 bullock for themselves, and cut it in pieces, and lay it on wood, and put no fire under. And I will dress the other bullock, and lay it on wood, and put no fire under. And call ye on the name of your gods, and I will call on the name of the Lord. And the God that answered by fire, let him be God. And all the people answered and said, it is well spoken, right? So basically he's saying, look, if Baal is a real God, let him prove himself. And I will prove that the Lord is a true God whenever he reveals himself. All right. Verse 25. And Elijah said unto the prophets of Baal, choose you 1 bullock for yourselves, and dress it first, for ye are many. And call on the name of your gods, but put no fire under. And they took the bullock which was given them, and they dressed it, and called on the name of Baal from morning even until noon, saying, O Baal, hear us. But there was no voice, nor any that answered. And they leapt upon the altar which was made. And it came to pass at noon that Elijah mocked them and said, cry aloud, for he is a god. Either he is talking, or he is pursuing, or he is in a journey, or peradventure he sleepeth and must be awake. So Elijah starts mocking them around lunchtime. He's like, look, maybe he's busy. Scream a little louder, yell a little louder. Maybe he just don't hear you. Verse 28. And they cried aloud and cut themselves after their manner with knives and lancets, till the blood gushed out upon them, because those Canaanite gods, Baal, Molech, whoever else, were gods of human sacrifice. All right, so that's why I say they cut themselves after their manner. They cut themselves. We've got the human blood on the sacrifice now. They think that's going to appease their God. Verse 29. And it came to pass when midday was past, and they prophesied until the time of the offering of the evening sacrifice, that there was neither voice nor any to answer, nor any that regarded. Right, so it said until the time of the offering of the evening sacrifice. So they're out there from, it said morning. Let's just say 7 a.m. to around 7 p.m. They're out there all day crying out to Baal. And obviously nothing's happening because Baal's not real. Verse 30. And Elijah said unto all the people, come near unto me. And all the people came near unto him, and he repaired the altar of the Lord that was broken down. And Elijah took 12 stones, according to the number of the tribes of the sons of Jacob, unto whom the word of the Lord came, saying, Israel shall be thy name. And with the stones he built an altar in the name of the Lord. And he made a trench about the altar, as great as would contain 2 measures of seed, right? So he's doing all this preparation, building this altar with these whole stones, because the law says that you can't cut a stone to make an altar to God. You got to use whole stones. And he put the wood in order and cut the bullock in pieces and laid him on the wood, and said, fill 4 barrels with water and pour it on the burnt sacrifice and on the wood, right? So he said, look, get it wet so it's even harder to light on fire. And he said, do it the second time. And they did it the second time. So he built that trench too, like a little moat. They dumping all this water, getting it wet, getting the altar wet. So again, it would be even harder for it to burst into flames. He said, do it the third time. They did it the third time. And the water ran about the altar, and he filled the trench also with water. You see that right there? So soaking wet altar, moat around the altar, little ditch around the altar. And it came to pass at the time of the offering of the evening sacrifice that Elijah the prophet came near and said, Lord God of Abraham, Isaac, and of Israel, let it be known this day that thou art God in Israel, and that I am thy servant, and that I have done all these things at thy word. Hear me, O Lord, hear me, that this people may know that thou art the Lord God, and that thou hast turned their heart back again. Then the fire of the Lord fell and consumed the burnt sacrifice and the wood and the stones and the dust and licked up the water that was in the trench. So there was so much fire came down from the sky that it dried up all the water. Not only did it burn up the sacrifice, it dried up all the water as well. All right. And when all the people saw it, they fell on their faces and they said, the Lord, he is the God. The Lord, he is the God. And Elijah said unto them, take the prophets of Baal, let not one of them escape. And they took them. And Elijah brought them down to the brook Kishon and slew them there. He killed them. He killed all those prophets of Baal, all those false prophets. He killed them. Let's see where the brook Kishon is. Probably around Carmel, if I had to guess. Yeah. The brook Kishon right here. I think that's what it says. Yeah, that's Kishon. Right there at Carmel, I think. Let me see. Was there another name for that as well? No, I'm thinking of the Yarkon down there at south. Kishon is just called Kishon. All right. Let's go back. And slew them there. Verse 41. And Elijah said unto Ahab, get thee up, eat and drink, for there is a sound of abundance of rain. Right? So now that the Lord has made this display, proven to the people that he is the only true God, now he's going to send rain. So Ahab went up to eat and to drink. And Elijah went up to the top of Carmel, and he cast himself down upon the earth and put his face between his knees and said to his servant, go up now, look toward the sea. And he went up and looked and said, there is nothing. And he said, go again 7 times. And it came to pass the 7th time that he said, behold, there arises a little cloud out of the sea, like a man's hand. And he said, go up, saying to Ahab, prepare thy chariot, and get thee down, that the rain stop thee not. It came to pass in the meanwhile that the heaven was black with clouds and wind, and there was a great rain. And Ahab rode and went to Jezreel. And the hand of the Lord was on Elijah, and he girded up his loins and ran before Ahab to the entrance of Jezreel. Right? So Elijah, he went, bowed down on Carmel, basically balled up in the fetal position. And he said, I know the Lord's about to send some rain, so go check. Oh, he ain't sent it yet? Keep going. Did that 7 times. Then the guy said, I think I see something. Yeah, there's a little cloud back there. He said, all right, it's coming now. All right. So praise the Lord. All right, let's just see Jezreel. Let's see where Jezreel is. There's so many on this map that it's hard to keep up with all of them. Jezreel down here. And even near Mount Gilboa, you have the valley of Jezreel. All right, still basically in the same area. It's just from Carmel over here towards the sea. And as you go more inland in the plain of Megiddo, you go down to the valley of Jezreel. All right, let's keep it moving. Chapter 19. And Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah had done, and withal how he had slain all the prophets with the sword, right? Killed all those false prophets of Baal. Then Jezebel sent a messenger unto Elijah, saying, so let the gods do to me, and more also, if I make not thy life as the life of one of them by tomorrow about this time. Right? So obviously Jezebel, this Canaanite woman, this devil woman, she said, look, I'm going to kill Elijah just like he killed all our prophets. And when he saw that, he arose and went for his life and came to Beersheba, which belonged to Judah, and left his servant there. Right? So he went down again. Let's look at the map. Look at Beersheba. Beersheba is all the way down here in the south. It originally, when the tribes were given their land, it originally belonged to Simeon. And Simeon, all of Simeon was surrounded by the land of Judah. But obviously when the split happened, Judah just took that land. And any Simeon that wanted to remain loyal to the northern kingdom had to flee north. But a lot of them probably just stayed in their cities. But Beersheba is all the way south, far out of the territory of the northern kingdom, far out of the territory of Jezebel. Let's go back. And he left his servant there, but he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness. All right, so he went down there into the desert and came and sat under a juniper tree. And he requested for himself that he might die and said, it is enough. Now, O Lord, take away my life, for I am not better than my fathers. Right? So even if Elijah had died right then, that would still be an amazing legacy, and he'd still be a mighty prophet. But the Lord had more plans for him than that. And as he lay and slept under a juniper tree, behold, then an angel touched him and said unto him, Arise and eat. And he looked, and behold, there was a cake baking on the coals, and a cruse of water at his head. And he did eat and drink, and laid him down again. And the angel of the Lord came again the second time and touched him and said, Arise and eat, because the journey is too great for thee. And he said, Look, get full now, because you're going to be hungry on the journey if you don't. And he arose and did eat and drink, and went in the strength of that meat 40 days and 40 nights unto Horeb, the mount of God. So he went down to the same Mount Sinai, because Mount Horeb is Mount Sinai, the same mountain that the Lord spoke to Moses. All right. Verse 9. And he came thither into a cave and lodged there. And behold, the word of the Lord came to him, and he said unto him, What doest thou here, Elijah? And he said, I have been very jealous for the Lord God of hosts. For the children of Israel have forsaken thy covenant, thrown down thine altars, and slain the prophets with the sword. And I, even I only, am left, and they seek my life to take it away. And he said, Go forth, and stand upon the mount before the Lord. And behold, the Lord passed by. And a great and strong wind rent the mountains, and brake in pieces the rocks before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind. And after the wind, an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. All right, so he sent this strong hurricane force winds and an earthquake. And after the earthquake, a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire, a still small voice. And it was so, when Elijah heard it, that he wrapped his face in his mantle, and went out, and stood in the entering in of the cave. And behold, there came a voice unto him, and said, What dost thou here, Elijah? And he said, I have been very jealous for the Lord God of hosts, because the children of Israel have forsaken thy covenant, thrown down thine altars, and slain thy prophets with the sword. And I, even I only, am left, and they seek my life to take it away. I just realized that, I didn't show on a map where Horeb is, where Mount Sinai is. If you were unfamiliar, this is sort of a zoom out that we like to use here. It's around in here. This is the Sinai Peninsula between Egypt and Israel. It's around in there. All right. So let's go back. And the Lord said unto him, Go, return on thy way to the wilderness of Damascus. And when thou comest, anoint Hazael to be king over Syria. And Jehu, the son of Nimshi, shalt thou anoint to be king over Israel. And Elisha, the son of Shaphat of Abel Maholah, shalt thou anoint to be prophet in thy room. Right? So the Lord said, all right, you ready to die? Well, we're going to set up what the world's going to be looking like after you pass. All right? Elisha's going to be the prophet in your stead. Jehu's going to be the new king over Israel. And Hazael is going to be the new king over Syria. All right. And it shall come to pass that him that escapeth the sword of Hazael shall Jehu slay, and him that escapeth from the sword of Jehu shall Elisha slay. Yet I have left me 7,000 in Israel, all the knees which have not bowed unto Baal, and every mouth which hath not kissed him. Right? So the Lord speaking to Elijah, he said, you don't know what you're talking about, man. You're not the only one that's serving me right now. There's 7,000 more in Israel right now that have not served Baal. And that just goes to show that even when the whole land has fell to wickedness, the Lord always leaves a remnant. Always. Even in the scriptures, when it seems like in situations like this, where you just hear about one prophet and it talks about all Israel turned against the Lord always leaves a remnant. There's always some people that's even not mentioned in the Bible, because maybe they didn't perform miracles, maybe they didn't do mighty acts, but they served the Lord. All right. So the Lord always leaves a remnant. Verse 19. So he departed thence and found Elisha, the son of Shaphat, who was plowing with 12 yoke of oxen before him, and he with the 12th. And Elijah passed by him and cast his mantle upon him. And he left the oxen and ran after Elijah and said, Let me, I pray thee, kiss my father and my mother, and then I will follow thee. And he said unto him, Go back again. For what have I done to thee? And he returned back from him and took a yoke of oxen and slew them and boiled their flesh with the instruments of the oxen and gave unto the people, and they did eat. Then he arose and went after Elijah and ministered unto him. Right. So ministered unto him means served him. Right. It means, serve all work. That's what minister means. It doesn't mean preacher. It means servant. All right. It said from Abel Mahola. I do want to see if we see Abel Mahola on here. Yes, right here. Close to Tishbe. All right, just down the brook Cherith. You see Abel Mahola up here. I know it's a little... There we go. Zoom it in a little bit. I don't know if you can see that or not right here. Abel Mahola. That's where Elisha's from. And again, remember Elijah is down right here. It's from right there, rather. All right. So, let's keep going. 1 Kings 20. And the next couple chapters are somewhat detours, but it talks about Ahab. So we're going to get into it. Verse 1. And Ben-Hadad, the king of Syria, gathered all his hosts together. And there were 32 kings with him, and horses and chariots. And he went up and besieged Samaria and warred against it. All right, so when you besiege, especially a city back then, all the cities had walls. The major city had walls so that people could not just come in and take the city. So besieging it is setting up camp right outside the city, setting up your army right outside the city so that no goods may come in or out, no trade can happen, they're not getting any food in the city, and you're breaking down the walls. That's what besieging it is, and warred against it. And he sent messengers to Ahab, king of Israel, into the city, and said unto him, Thus saith Ben-Hadad, Thy silver and thy gold is mine, thy wives also, and thy children, even the goodliest, are mine. Ben-Hadad's telling Ahab, look, I'm taking everything that you have. It's all mine now. And the king of Israel answered and said, My lord, O king, according to thy saying, I am thine and all that I have. And the messengers came again and said, Thus speaketh Ben-Hadad, saying, Although I have sent unto thee, saying, Thou shalt deliver me thy silver and thy gold and thy wives and thy children, yet I will send my servants unto thee tomorrow about this time, and they shall search thine house and the houses of thy servants, and it shall be that whatsoever is pleasant in thine eyes, they shall put it in their hand and take it away. All right, so Ahab weak. He don't want to fight. He's like, look, I'll serve you whatever you want, O Ben-Hadad, king of Syria. And Ben-Hadad said, you know what? I'm just going to send my servants in. They're just going to come take whatever you like, whatever you have that you hold dear. They're just going to come take it. Verse 7. Then the king of Israel called all the elders of the land and said, Mark, I pray you, and see how this man seeketh mischief. For he sent unto me for my wives and for my children, for my silver and my gold, and I denied him not. And all the elders of the people said unto him, Hearken not unto him, nor consent. They're like, what are you doing? Don't give up yourself and your family and all that you have. Wherefore he said unto the messengers of Ben-Hadad, Tell my lord the king, all that thou didst send for to thy servant at the first, I will do. But this thing I may not do. And the messengers departed and brought him word again. He said, Look, we'll serve you, but I can't let you take everything that I have. And Ben-Hadad sent unto him and said, The gods do so unto me, and more also, if the dust of Samaria shall suffice for handfuls for all the people that follow me. He said, Look, we're going to destroy the city. And the king of Israel answered and said, Tell him, let not him that girdeth on his harness boast himself as he putteth it off. And it came to pass. Oh, now Ahab's getting a little cocky. He's getting a little muster in him. All right. It came to pass when Ben-Hadad heard this message, as he was drinking, he and the kings in the pavilions, that he said unto his servants, Set yourselves in array. And they set themselves in array against the city. All right. So he probably did a spit take. All right. He said, What'd he say? He said, We're going to war. Verse 13. And behold, there came a prophet unto Ahab, king of Israel, saying, Thus saith the Lord, Hast thou seen all this great multitude? Behold, I will deliver it into thy hand this day, and thou shalt know that I am the Lord. So, you see how merciful the Lord is? Even though Ahab is wicked as hell, he still wants to fight for him, because he is of his people. All right. And Ahab said, By whom? And he said, Thus saith the Lord, even by the young men of the princes of the provinces. Then he said, who shall order the battle? And he answered, thou. Right, so Ahab weak. Ahab is weak. That's what we read a couple of weeks ago in 1 Kings 16. Ahab was weak. He was not like his father. His father was a mighty man of war. Ahab was not. He was weak. Right? So the prophet said, look, all that the king of Syria is bringing with him, you're going to defeat him. All right? So Ahab said, wait a minute. Who's going to defeat him? The young men of Israel who are fighting. And he said, who's going to lead them into battle? You are. Gird up your loins and be a man. Verse 15. Then he numbered the young men of the princes of the provinces, and they were 232. And after them he numbered all the people, even all the children of Israel, being 7,000. Right, so there's not many. Not many going out to this battle. Excuse me. Verse 16. And they went out at noon, but Ben-Hadad was drinking himself drunk in the pavilions, he and the kings, the 32 kings that helped him. And the young men of the provinces, and the young men of the princes of the provinces went out first. And Ben-Hadad sent out, and they told him, saying, there are men come out of Samaria. And he said, whether they be come out for peace, take them alive. Or whether they be come out for war, take them alive. Take them alive. All right, so he said, look, we're going to make an example out of these young men. That's what Ben-Hadad is thinking to himself. Verse 19. So these young men of the princes of the provinces came out of the city, and the army which followed them. And they slew every one his man. And the Syrians fled. And Israel pursued them. And Ben-Hadad, the king of Syria, escaped on a horse with the horsemen. And the king of Israel went out and smote the horses and chariots, and slew the Syrians with a great slaughter. And the prophet came to the king of Israel and said unto him, go strengthen thyself and march. See what thou doest. For at the return of the year the king of Syria will come up against thee. Verse 23. And the servants of the king of Syria said unto him, their gods are gods of the hills, therefore they were stronger than we. But let us fight against them in the plain, and surely we shall be stronger than they. And do this thing, take the kings away, every man out of his place, and put captains in their rooms, right? So he said, find skillful men of war, and we'll come back and we'll beat them next time. That's what the Syrians were thinking. And number thee an army, like the army that thou hast lost, horse for horse, chariot for chariot, and we will fight against them in the plain. And surely we shall be stronger than they. And he hearkened unto their voice and did so. Right? So even before Ben-Hadad's counselor came to him and told him, we're going to come back, the prophet of the Lord told Ahab, look, they're going to come back. Right? Because God already knew. He's doing all this for a reason. And it came to pass at the return of the year that Ben-Hadad numbered the Syrians and went up to Aphek to fight against Israel. Aphek. Let's see. I think Aphek's more to the south. Yeah. Aphek's down here. All right. Samaria is up. Where do you see Samaria? Samaria? Man, how's Samaria not on this map? That's crazy. We'll find it on this other map, though. This got all the cities. Aphek down here, and Samaria, of course, is, where's Samaria? Here it is, right here, big city. All right, so they went a little bit more south this time. Samaria, again, was probably a larger city, harder to conquer than Aphek. But you see how it's a plain. Samaria is a little bit more hilly. Aphek, fight against Israel. Verse 27. And the children of Israel were numbered and were all present and went against them. And the children of Israel pitched before them like two little flocks of kids, right, like little goats. But the Syrians filled the country. Right, there were so many of them compared to the little number of the children of Israel that were in Aphek. And there came a man of God and spake unto the king of Israel and said, thus saith the Lord, because the Syrians have said the Lord is God of the hills, but he is not God of the valleys. Therefore will I deliver all this great multitude into thy hand, and ye shall know that I am the Lord. You see that right there? So, again, at that time, even of the northern kingdom, and Ahab and his men were worshiping all these different gods who are specific gods of specific things, right? Like this one would be a god of thunder. This one would be a god of, the grass. This one would be a god of agriculture. This one would be a god of the mountains. This one would be a god of the valleys, right? But the Lord is showing not only to the northern kingdom of Israel, but to everybody, to all the people of the lands coming against them, that the Lord is God of all. The Lord is the God of heaven and earth, all right? It doesn't matter where you go to fight against him. He will always win, all right? Therefore, and show that I am the Lord. Verse 29. And they pitched one over against the other 7 days. And so it was that in the 7th day the battle was joined. And the children of Israel slew of the Syrians 100,000 footmen in 1 day. But the rest fled to Aphet, into the city. And there a wall fell upon 27,000 of the men that were left. So this is beautiful right here, because the children of Israel themselves killed 100,000, right? But then, even if that wasn't enough, the Lord showed, hey, I got this, right? And he killed another, quarter, another, 25%, 27% actually. An additional 27% of who the men themselves killed. And Ben-Hadad fled and came into the city, into an inner chamber, right, hiding. And the servant said unto him, behold, now, we have heard that the kings of the house of Israel are merciful kings. Let us, I pray thee, put sackcloth on our loins and ropes on our heads, and go out to the king of Israel. Peradventure he will save thy life. So they girded sackcloth on their loins, put ropes on their heads, and came to the king of Israel and said, thy servant Ben-Hadad saith, I pray thee, let me live. And he said, is he yet alive? He is my brother. Right? So they said, look, let's beg him for mercy, because they're going to kill us. And then Ahab said, I'll spare you. Now the men did diligently observe whether anything would come from him, and did hastily catch it. And they said, thy brother Ben-Hadad. Then he said, go ye, bring him. Then Ben-Hadad came forth to him, and he caused him to come up into the chariot. And Ben-Hadad said unto him, the cities which my father took from thy father I will restore. And thou shalt make streets for thee in Damascus, as my father made in Samaria. And then said Ahab, I will send thee away with this covenant. So he made a covenant with him and sent him away. Excuse me. He said, look, I'm going to give you everything back. I'm going to give you all these cities. I'm going to even set up a place for you in Damascus. You're not going to regret this, right? I'm going to give you all these things. Verse 35. And a certain man of the sons of the prophets said unto his neighbor in the word of the Lord, smite me, I pray thee. And the man refused to smite him. Then said he unto him, because thou hast not obeyed the voice of the Lord, behold, as soon as thou art departed from me, a lion shall slay thee. And as soon as he was departed from him, a lion found him and slew him. Then he found another man and said, smite me, I pray thee. And the man smote him, so that in smiting he wounded him. So the prophet departed and waited for the king by the way, and disguised himself with ashes upon his face. And as the king passed by, he cried unto the king, and he said, thy servant went out in the midst of the battle, and behold, a man turned aside and brought a man unto me, and said, keep this man. If by any means he be missing, then shall thy life be for his life, or else thou shalt pay a talent of silver. And as thy servant was busy here and there, he was gone. And the king of Israel said unto him, so shall thy judgment be. Thyself has decided it. So the prophet here is proving a point. That's why he asked somebody to smite him, so that he could, give the pretense that he was in the battle and give this specific scenario. And so that Ahab, the king of Israel, made this judgment. He said, your judgment will be as you had decided it, right? And he hasted and took the ashes from his face. And the king of Israel discerned him that he was of the prophets. And he said unto him, thus saith the Lord, because thou hast let go out of thy hand a man whom I appointed to utter destruction, therefore thy life shall go for his life, and thy people for his people. And the king of Israel went to his house, heavy and displeased, and came to Samaria, right? Because we already know from the previous chapter that God had already anointed a different king of Syria, Hazael, right? So the Lord wanted Ben-Hadad to die in this war because he wanted to defy the God of Israel. But of course, Ahab spared him. So So the Lord said, I'm done with you, Ahab. You're going to die now. And it's already 9:30. But I will at least read this chapter, if not, go on through the next couple chapters as well. 1 Kings 21, starting with verse 1. And it came to pass after these things that Naboth the Jezreelite had a vineyard, which was in Jezreel, hard by the palace of Ahab king of Samaria. And Ahab spake to Naboth, saying, Give me thy vineyard, that I may have it for a garden of herbs, because it is near unto my house. And I will give thee for it a better vineyard than it. Or if it seem good to thee, I will give thee the worth of it in money. Right? So Ahab's like, hey, let me buy your field from you because I like it. It's close by. I want to make my own vineyard out of it. And Naboth said to Ahab, the Lord forbid it me, that I should give the inheritance of my fathers unto thee. And Ahab came into his house heavy and displeased because of the word which Naboth the Jezreelite had spoken to him. For he said, I will not give thee the inheritance of my fathers. And he laid him down upon his bed and turned away his face and would eat no bread. So, he's throwing a little hissy fit. But Jezebel his wife came to him and said unto him, Why is this thy spirit so sad, that thou eatest no bread? And he said unto her, Because I spake unto Naboth the Jezreelite, and said unto him, Give me thy vineyard for money, or else, if it please thee, I will give thee another vineyard for it. And he answered, I will not give thee my vineyard. So she's like, Oh, baby, what's wrong? And he's like, Naboth, he wouldn't send me a vineyard. Verse 7. And Jezebel his wife said unto him, Dost thou now govern the kingdom of Israel? Arise and eat bread, and let thy heart be merry, and I will give thee the vineyard of Naboth the Jezreelite. So that's the thing about weak men. All right, weak men will get run by their woman. All right, and that's exactly what happened here. Instead of him being a righteous man of God, being strong and bold, and just accepting the fact that he can't have everything, he has to. His wife boosted him up in wickedness, right? So she wrote letters in Ahab's name and sealed them with his seal, and sent the letters unto the elders and to the nobles that were in his city dwelling with Naboth. And she wrote in the letters, saying, Proclaim a fast, and set Naboth on high among the people, and set 2 men, sons of Belial, before him, to bear witness against him, saying, Thou didst blaspheme God and the king, and then carry him out and stone him that he may die. Right? So she set up this plot of false accusations against this man who did nothing wrong. Verse 11. And the men of his city, even the elders and the nobles who were the inhabitants of his city, did as Jezebel had sent unto them, and as it was written in the letters which she had sent unto them. They proclaimed a fast, and set Naboth on high among the people. And there came in 2 men, children of Belial, and sat before him. And the men of Belial, and men of Belial means the devil, witnessed against him, even against Naboth, in the presence of the people, saying, Naboth did blaspheme God and the king. Then they carried him forth out of the city, and stoned him with stones, that he died. Then they sent to Jezebel, saying, Naboth is stoned and is dead. And it came to pass, when Jezebel heard that Naboth was stoned and was dead, that Jezebel said to Ahab, Arise, take possession of the vineyard of Naboth the Jezreelite, which he refused to give thee for money. For Naboth is not alive, but dead. Right? So she went and took matters into her own hands, being wicked, falsely accused this man, got him killed. And it came to pass, when Ahab heard that Naboth was dead, that Ahab rose up to go down to the vineyard of Naboth the Jezreelite to take possession of it. Verse 17. And the word of the Lord came to Elijah the Tishbite, saying, Arise, go down to meet Ahab king of Israel, which is in Samaria. Behold, he is in the vineyard of Naboth, whither he is gone down to possess it. Right? So God told Elijah to get down there. And thou shalt speak unto him, saying, Thus saith the Lord, Hast thou killed and also taken possession? And thou shalt speak unto him, saying, Thus saith the Lord, In the place where dogs lick the blood of Naboth shall dogs lick thy blood, even thine, even your own. You're going to die. Verse 20. And Ahab said to Elijah, Hast thou found me, O mine enemy? And he answered, I have found thee, because thou hast sold thyself to work evil in the sight of the Lord. Right? So Elijah's out here doing his own missions, then gets word from the Lord, hey, go talk to Ahab again. Tell him that he's going to die for being wicked and evil. Verse 21. Behold, I will bring evil upon thee, and will take away thy posterity, and will cut off from Ahab him that pisseth against the wall, and him that is shut up, and left in Israel. So him that pisseth against the wall, meaning all males. I'm going to cut off his lineage. Verse 22. And will make thine house like the house of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, and like the house of Baasha the son of Ahijah, for the provocation wherewith thou hast provoked me to anger, and made Israel to sin. Verse 23. And of Jezebel also spake the Lord, saying, the dogs shall eat Jezebel by the wall of Jezreel. Him that dieth of Ahab in the city, the dogs shall eat, and him that dieth in the field shall the fowls of the air eat. He said, look, I'm killing all your seed, all your family. Verse 25. But there was none like unto Ahab, which did sell himself to work wickedness in the sight of the Lord, whom Jezebel his wife stirred up. And he did very abominably in following idols, according to all things as did the Amorites, whom the Lord cast out before the children of Israel. Verse 27. And it came to pass, when Ahab heard those words, that he rent his clothes, and put sackcloth upon his flesh, and fasted, and lay in sackcloth, and went softly. And the word of the Lord came to Elijah the Tishbite, saying, seest thou how Ahab humbleth himself before me? Because he humbleth himself before me, I will not bring the evil in his days, but in his son's days will I bring the evil upon his house. Right, so God said, look, I can't go back on my word that I've said, but I can delay the inevitable, because Ahab did want to humble himself and did want to repent from that sin specifically. Not from all his sins, but from that sin specifically. He felt bad about it. This is 1 Kings 22, and this will probably be the last chapter that we do tonight. 1 Kings 22 and verse 1. This goes into the death of Ahab. And they continued 3 years without war between Syria and Israel. And it came to pass in the 3rd year that Jehoshaphat, the king of Judah, came down to the king of Israel. And the king of Israel said unto his servants, know ye that Ramoth in Gilead is ours, and we be still, and take it not out of the hand of the king of Syria? Right, so I stopped last week with Asa, because Asa is the father of Jehoshaphat, and I knew that we would be coming back to Jehoshaphat in this lesson. All right, so Ramoth Gilead, let's finish verse 4. And he said unto Jehoshaphat, wilt thou go with me to battle to Ramoth Gilead? And Jehoshaphat said to the king of Israel, I am as thou art, my people is thy people, my horses as thy horses. All right, and Ramoth Gilead is over here. At that time, Syria had control of Ramoth Gilead, and Ahab was like, hey, that actually belongs to Israel. Let's go take it. All right. We've already beat Syria in battle before. We can beat them again. All right. You want to help me, Jehoshaphat, king of Judah? All right. Verse 5. And Jehoshaphat said unto the king of Israel, inquire, I pray thee, at the word of the Lord today. Then the king of Israel gathered the prophets together, about 400 men, and said unto them, shall I go against Ramoth Gilead to battle, or shall I forbear? And they said, go up, for the Lord shall deliver it into the hand of the king. All right, so these 400 men all said the same thing. They said, go and take it. God is with you. He'll give it to your hand. Verse 7. And Jehoshaphat said, is there not here a prophet of the Lord besides, that we might inquire of him? He said, look, I don't know about these guys. Is there another prophet of the Lord around here somewhere? And the king of Israel said to Jehoshaphat, there is yet one man, Micaiah, the son of Imlah, by whom we may inquire of the Lord. But I hate him, for he doth not prophesy good concerning me, but evil. And Jehoshaphat said, let not the king say so. So he's like, look, don't say that. We haven't even heard him speak. Ahab's like, look, he's always got something bad to say about me. He ain't never said nothing good. Verse 9. Then the king of Israel called an officer and said, hasten hither, Micaiah the son of Imlah. And the king of Israel and Jehoshaphat, the king of Judah, sat each on his throne, having put on their robes, in a void place in the entrance of the gate of Samaria. And all the prophets prophesied before them. And Zedekiah, the son of Chenaanah, made him horns of iron. And he said, thus saith the Lord, with these shalt thou push the Syrians, until thou have consumed them. And all the prophets prophesied so, saying, go up to Ramoth Gilead and prosper, for the Lord shall deliver it into the king's hand. All right, so you got this Zedekiah guy who was like, who made these basically trumpets, these shofars of iron. He said, look, this is what you're going to use to fight against them. Verse, and everybody's like, yeah, good job. That was a good one. Verse 13. And the messenger that was gone to call Micaiah spake unto him, saying, Behold, now the words of the prophets declare good unto the king with one mouth. Let thy word, I pray thee, be like the word of one of them, and speak that which is good. And Micaiah said, As the Lord liveth, what the Lord saith unto me, that will I speak. Right? So this prison guard tells Micaiah, look, you better say something nice to the king. All right, you're in jail because you've been speaking all these evil words against the king. You better say something nice. That's what everybody else is saying. So you say the same thing. He's like, look, I got to say what God tells me to say. I ain't saying what everybody else says. Verse 15, excuse me. So he came to the king, and the king said unto him, Micaiah, shall we go against Ramoth Gilead to battle, or shall we forbear? And he answered him, Go and prosper, for the Lord shall deliver it into the hand of the king. And the king said unto him, How many times shall I adjure thee, that thou tell me nothing but that which is true in the name of the Lord? Right, so he said, oh yeah, go up and prosper. Go ahead. I ain't gonna stop you. And Ahab was like, man, why are you playing with me? Verse 17. And he said, I saw all Israel scattered upon the hills, as sheep that have no shepherd. And the Lord said, These have no master. Let them return every man to his house in peace. Right? So he said, look, you go up to Ramoth Gilead and you're going to die. And all the men of Israel are just going to run back to where they're from. And the king of Israel said unto Jehoshaphat, Did I not tell thee that he would prophesy no good concerning me, but evil? And he said, Hear thou therefore the word of the Lord. I saw the Lord sitting on his throne, and all the host of heaven standing by him on his right hand and on his left. But, in verse 18, Ahab was like, Jehoshaphat, didn't I tell you, man? I told you it was going to happen. Anyway, the vision that Micaiah sees right here. He sees God in heaven, right? Got all the spirits, all the angels with him. And the Lord said, Who shall persuade Ahab that he may go up and fall at Ramoth Gilead? And one said on this manner, and another said on that manner. And there came forth a spirit and stood before the Lord, and said, I will persuade him. And the Lord said unto him, Wherewith? So the Lord asked the spirit, How? How are you going to persuade Ahab to go up to Ramoth Gilead? And he said, I will go forth, and I will be a lying spirit in the mouth of all his prophets. And he said, Thou shalt persuade him, and prevail also. Go forth and do so. Right? So God's like, I like that idea. Go down in there and convince him. Tell him. Be that lying spirit that you said you was going to do. A lot of people think only good comes from the Lord. No, God creates good and evil. All right? Everything that happens is from God. All right? Verse 23. Now, therefore, behold, the Lord hath put a lying spirit in the mouth of all these thy prophets, and the Lord hath spoken evil concerning thee. Verse 24. But Zedekiah, the son of Chenaanah, went near and smote Micaiah on the cheek and said, Which way went the spirit of the Lord from me to speak unto thee? Right? So Zedekiah walks up, smacks the hell out of him, right? And he said, Well, how did God tell me to do that? And Micaiah said, Behold, thou shalt see in that day when thou shalt go into an inner chamber to hide thyself. And Micaiah said, You're going to pay for that. God going to get you for that. And the king of Israel said, Take Micaiah and carry him back unto Amon, the governor of the city, and to Joash the king's son, and say, Thus saith the king, Put this fellow in the prison, and feed him with the bread of affliction and with water of affliction, until I come in peace. And Micaiah said, If thou return at all in peace, the Lord hath not spoken by me. And he said, Hearken, O people, every one of you. Right, so Micaiah said, Hey, you better pay attention. You better listen. If you come back at all, God is not dealing with me. But if you die in Ramoth Gilead, know it's the word of the Lord. Verse 29. So the king of Israel and Jehoshaphat, the king of Judah, went up to Ramoth Gilead. And the king of Israel said unto Jehoshaphat, I will disguise myself and enter into the battle, but put thou on thy robes. And the king of Israel disguised himself and went into the battle. Right? So we'll see right here why he did that. But the king of Syria commanded his 32 captains that had rule over his chariots, saying, Fight, neither with small nor great, save only with the king of Israel. Right? So he's saying, look for the king of Israel and smite or chop off the head, and the body will fall with it, right? And it came, verse 32, and it came to pass when the captains of the chariot saw Jehoshaphat that they said, Surely it is the king of Israel. And they turned aside to fight against him. And Jehoshaphat cried out, And it came to pass when the captains of the chariots perceived that it was not the king of Israel, that they turned back from pursuing him, right? Because they had no beef with the king of Judah. They just wanted to kill the king of Israel. They knew that that's who was coming against the city. Verse 34. And a certain man drew a bow at a venture and smote the king of Israel between the joints of the harness. So the joints would be like right here in the chest. Wherefore he said unto the driver of his chariot, turn thy hand and carry me out of the host, for I am wounded. He said, I'm hit. Take me back. Verse 35. And the battle increased that day, and the king was stayed upon his chariot, stayed up in his chariot against the Syrians, and died at even. Right as the sun was going down, the sun went down on his life as well. And the blood ran out of the wound into the midst of the chariot. And there went a proclamation throughout the host about the going down of the sun, saying, every man to his city, and every man to his own country, just as the word of the Lord by the mouth of Micaiah said it would be. Verse 37. So the king died and was brought to Samaria, and they buried the king in Samaria. And one washed the chariot in the pool of Samaria, and the dogs licked up his blood, and they washed his armor according to the word of the Lord which he spake. Right, the dogs licked up the blood even in Samaria. Now the rest of the acts of Ahab and all that he did, and the ivory house which he made, and all the cities that he built, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Israel? We don't have the Chronicles of the Kings of Israel. We only have the Chronicles of the Kings of Judah. All right. So Ahab slept with his fathers, and Ahaziah, his son, reigned in his stead. All right, so we're going to read briefly about Jehoshaphat. We're going to get more into Jehoshaphat next week because he had a lot of mighty acts. But we're just going to finish out this chapter. And Jehoshaphat, the son of Asa, began to reign over Judah in the 4th year of Ahab, king of Israel. And Jehoshaphat was 35 years old when he began to reign. And he reigned 25 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Azubah, the daughter of Shili. And he walked in all the ways of Asa his father. He turned not aside from it, doing that which was right in the eyes of the Lord. Nevertheless, the high places were not taken away, right? So he didn't take away all the high places, all the pagan churches, all the pagan temples. He didn't take them all away. For the people offered and burnt incense yet in the high places. And Jehoshaphat made peace with the king of Israel. Now the rest of the acts of Jehoshaphat and his might, which he showed, and how he warred, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Judah? And that's what we'll get next week. And the remnant of the Sodomites, which remained in the days of his father Asa, he took out of the land. You see that right there? So he even stopped all the alphabet people. Verse 47. There was then no king in Edom. A deputy was king. Jehoshaphat made ships of Tarshish to go to Ophir for gold, but they went not, for the ships were broken at Ezion-Geber. All right, and we might read a little bit more on that next week. I'm not sure if that goes into more detail, but that's pretty much what you need to know. He wanted to, establish the same trade routes and stuff that Solomon had, but it didn't end up working out that way. Verse 29. Then said Ahaziah, the son of Ahab, unto Jehoshaphat, let my servants go with thy servants in the ships. But Jehoshaphat would not. Say we'll pick back up with Jehoshaphat. Yeah, next week we'll do Jehoshaphat, and then we'll jump back to Elijah and Elisha after that, and Ahaziah. Verse 50. And Jehoshaphat slept with his fathers, and was buried with his fathers in the city of David his father. And Jehoram his son reigned in his stead. Verse 51. Ahaziah the son of Ahab began to reign over Israel and Samaria the 17th year of Jehoshaphat king of Judah, and reigned 2 years over Israel. And he did evil in the sight of the Lord, and walked in the way of his father, and in the way of his mother, and in the way of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, who made Israel to sin. Right? Ahaziah was just as wicked, just as evil as Ahab. Verse 53. For he served Baal and worshipped him, and provoked to anger the Lord God of Israel, according to all that his father had done.